how good is that? Everybody wants to work.
You know, that takes me back, Phil, to 1985.
Yeah.
I was 14 years of age, and I was watching Hey Hey It's Saturday. And the Uncanny X-Men were performing live, and Brian Mannix was bouncing around all over the stage, and I have to say, clearly lip-syncing, but not really trying too hard to even make it look like he was. And he joins us. Hello, Brian.
Good evening, fellas.
Hey, Brian, are you really there, or are you lip-syncing tonight?
Well, I actually pre-recorded. This is the conversation I pre-recorded about 20 minutes earlier, so I'm just lip-syncing now.
With Dennis Walter.
I was only 14 in 1985 too, Simon, so there we go.
It's great, isn't it? And we both look so young and handsome still today.
Yeah.
Oh, of course we do.
What a wonderful life, Brian. What do you look back on as some of the highlights?
Oh, for me...
yes, personally.
I think, the first time you go on Countdown was a very big deal.
Yeah.
I think singing at the grand final in 2006 was terrific. Dancing with the Stars was a whole heap of fun. That was probably a highlight too. So, I don't know, I've been blessed. I've had a very lucky life and got to do some really great things. Driving a celebrity race at the Grand Prix, those centre court, two-long tennis. It's wonderful.
How did the Grand Prix race go? Who were you up against that year?
David Hooks, Gordon Elliott, Grant Kenny, and Tony Gregg.
And how'd you go?
I beat Ken Cunningham, who was totally useless, and I came second last by a long shot. In fact, I was so far behind the main group of cars I couldn't see them for the whole race, and Ken Cunningham was so far behind me that he couldn't see me. So I was just driving around by myself most of the race. I didn't see anybody.
Oh, that's fun. They never asked you back by the sound of it.
Well, no, there's probably more deserving people to go in a race like that than me.
They're still waiting for Ken to finish.
Well, Ken still, I'm a bad driver, but he took it to new heights. It made me feel good.
Hey, Brian, this is a question I love asking, and you probably have never been asked it, but what's the worst live audience you've ever had to face? Where was it, and what's the story?
Okay, I think I was playing in a band that was sponsored by a cigarette company at the time, and a lot of pubs, so the band would go in and play for nothing. So a lot of pubs that didn't even have bands would say, oh yeah, we'll have the band. And we were driving along out in the middle of nowhere in the middle of Victoria, and then we saw this band that was set up in the bottle shop of some pub, and we thought, oh, look at these idiots, they've got to play in a bottle shop. And we kept driving, and then we realised it was us that was playing in the bottle shop.
Oh, no. How'd it turn out?
Well, there was about, a couple of people called in to buy a slab of beer, and there was a couple of the local kids sort of sitting around, and a dog. But the funny thing was, it was such a bad gig that it was, it's one of my
because of that, you will never forget it,
Brian, I remember a story told by someone from the Dynamic Hypnotics, and they recalled playing at a pub where there was actually nobody there, and so they said to the guy who owned the place, well, look, you might as well just pay us, we'll go, you've got no customers. And he said no, and he made them play to an empty pub.
That's so rock and roll, isn't it? But there's highs and lows in any career, and you just got to enjoy the lows and enjoy the highs.
Now, Brian, we've got Ken Francis producing tonight. He's a big fan of yours. I'm sure you want to say hi to him.
I'm a very good friend of Ken's. Hello, Ken. How are you, mate?
Good, Brian. Good to catch up. Thanks for being available tonight.
Oh, look, I'm available any night. I'm just glad to be anywhere.
I'm not sure if 10:30 at night is getting on for a rocker.
No, I've only just got up half an hour ago.
Oh, mate.
Now, Phil asked you about your highlights of your career. I guess initially being signed to Mushroom Records back in the early 80s must have been a huge highlight for you, because Mushroom was just a mammoth company in this country, wasn't it?
Oh, look, absolutely. And they were the... we just wanted to get a record deal, but, deep down we hoped we'd get one with Mushroom because, bands like Skyhooks, they were, I just thought, wow, how is this band? They're just amazing. And most of the bands that I liked were actually signed to Mushroom. And I liked the way they seemed to give the bands their head. Michael would always sort of make sure they have 2 or 3 singles, and then he just let the band go and make their album. You know, he didn't. You know, he let the musicians be artists, and I think that shows in some of the the great music that's been produced from Mushroom.
And that's evident from this latest CD that's out now because, of course, Mushroom turning 40 years old, can you believe it? I remember when the company started. I must be getting on myself.
Mm-hmm. Well, my 40th is coming up soon, Ken, so, it's not exciting.
Yeah, I know. I've got your present.
Hey, are you in touch with Michael Gudinski much these days?
Oh, look, I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him actually since I got thrown out of his Christmas party, Phil. But that's a whole other story.
Is that something you wish to share, or is that even at this late time a story that's not suitable?
You know me, I'm always going to say the wrong thing at the wrong time sometimes, and you never get it quite right all the time. But no, I haven't seen Michael late, but I'm sure I'll see him and bump into him somewhere in the near future.
Here's a connection between us which you weren't aware of when you were doing Countdown with Molly. That I went to school from the age of 6 with Michael Shrimpton, the executive producer of Countdown.
Well, I owe a lot to Michael Shrimpton because Countdown was such a great vehicle for all Australian bands and such a great, cultural icon of Australia, I think.
Yeah, and of course he went to London in around 64 originally for the BBC before he came back to do Countdown and lives in Sydney these days, but I'll give him your regards, okay?
Please do. That would be lovely.
Yes, Simon.
I'm just having a flick through the track listing of what's on this double CD of Mushroom, 40 years, 40 tracks. And I'm guessing, and I'll ask Ken for confirmation on this, they've done this 40 years, 40 tracks, so they've got a track from each year?
Well, they've got a track, I guess, from the heyday of Mushroom. So, I mean, Mushroom started around 72 and worked its way through. So you're going right from the early 70s when you're looking at bands like Chain and the Dingoes and Matt Taylor's on there, and you go right through to bands like Eskimo Joe, Chisel, who, of course, when Chisel reformed, that first album was out on Mushroom. So, I mean, it's just a mammoth track listing. The Angels, Angry Anderson, Choir Boys, the Sunny Boys, the Swingers, Split Ends, the Hooks, of course, you mentioned, Brian. It's all on there.
Because I see, Brian, that on their CD1 contains a lot of music from the 70s, which both you and I would be too young to remember, but Ken clearly does. The good stuff the good stuff for me is on disc 2, which is the 80s, with you guys and bands like the Bad Loves.
Yeah, well, Tony Featherstone is a wonderful keyboard player from the Bad Loves, and he'll be just delighted that we're mentioning his name right now. But yeah, the Bad Loves, what a great band. They're terrific.
I want to ask you this. I keep in touch with Air Supply, who, like Human Nature, are huge in Las Vegas. Why do you think they turned their back on Australia, Brian?
Well, Air Supply you're talking about?
Yeah, Air Supply, yeah.
Well, I think, if you have one top 10 hit in America, Phil, you're probably a millionaire for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And if you have 2 or 3, and I think also too that, their music was probably better suited to America, whereas there was more of a pub rock sort of culture in Australia where sort of the loud guitar sounds were sort of what was working. So, but, I tell you, I'd trade with them any day, about 5 top 10 American hits, yeah, I love that, that'll be lovely.
And Human Nature are doing well over there too, aren't they?
Oh, look, they're terrific. They're a very talented bunch of guys, and, I've met them a couple of times, and they all seem like really good blokes, and, good on them, they're doing Australia proud, and they're doing well for themselves, and, I love listening to them.
Do you like the expression a survivor? Because, you're still going strong with the absolutely 80s tours, which are great, but you tend to get labelled as a survivor. Is that an offensive thing or a good thing?
Well, compared to idiot, it's a fantastic thing. I'll take survivor any day of the week.
That's fine. Who are you in touch with these days that we know?
Who am I in touch with?
Yeah, who do you see around?
Tony Featherstone?
Oh, well, Tony Featherstone I bumped into from time to time. I see Scott Carnes from Kids in the Kitchen all the time, and Dale Ryder from Big Crash Opera. I see Ellie Fowler from the Chantoozies a bit.
Oh, okay, gorgeous.
And Yvonne Bigler from the Chantoozies. I keep in touch with Melanie, my dance partner from Dancing with the Stars.
Right.
And but I still hang around with most of my mates from school.
Yeah, that's important. That's
Oh,
it.
absolutely. You know, I've got with my friends, I've never done one thing in my life that's been any good, so they keep me well grounded.
Now, the great thing too, Brian, is that Warners, who are now, of course, literally own the Mushroom catalogue, have given us a heap of copies of Mushroom's 40 Rock to give away, which we're going to do next week, so that's going to be fantastic. So that's something to look forward to there. But I noticed, Brian, Simon mentioned Absolutely 80s. You're playing this Friday night at the Hawthorne Hotel.
Yes, I am.
Doing all those classic X-Men songs, which would be fantastic.
Well, yeah, well, there's be me and Scott and Dale there, and the best of the X-Men, the best of Boom Crash Opera, and the best of Kids in the Kitchen, and then we'll have an all-in brawl at the end. So
Well, don't punch on too much, because I'm coming to catch you on Saturday the 17th of August at the Mentone Hotel down my way.
Ah, well, fantastic, Ken. I'll look forward to having have a sherbet with you.
We will do that.
Make sure he pays the entrance fee, Brian.
Oh, look, I'll even put his name on the door.
Good on you, Brian. Brian Mannix, and as my buddy Ken Sparks would tell me, you're never too old to rock and roll.
God bless you, Phil.
Okay, mate, that's Mushroom. Great news from Karen. 40 years of Mushroom Records out on Warner Brothers right now. Good times, Brian. Bye, mate.
Cheers, guys.